So we've got Dan Lee from home. Hi, Dan. Sam Smith, our winemaker, is at the winery. Thank you for being with us, Sam, in the middle of harvest.
Thanks for having me, Melissa and team.
Sam and Dan are going to taste 4 amazing wines with us and tell us a little bit about what's going on at Morgan. Dan is going to taste our Double L Chardonnay Clone 17, which is a club exclusive wine, and our Double L Pinot just received 96 points with Wine Enthusiasts. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say about that. And Sam will be tasting our Rosé and the G17 Syrah, and we'll get to hear about what's going on at the winery. So let's go ahead and get started with Dan Lee. Hi, Dan. He's going to start with the Double L Chard Clone 17 and tell us a little bit about what's going on at the Double L Vineyard.
Yeah, okay. Don and I started the winery in 1982, and at that point in time, we purchased fruit from growers and for a number of years in the very beginning. But a big milestone for us is when we, in 1996, we purchased, a 65-acre piece of property in the San Lucia Highlands, which we called the Double L. And Jackie, you want to put up a picture of the Double L twins? So this is Annie and Jackie Lee. Jackie works with us now, and they were our first kids, identical twins, and so we call them the double luck twins because we a lot of our friends, we were a little bit late having kids, and so a lot of our friends had 1 or 2 kids already, so they were a little bit of a catch-up unit here, 2 at a time. So we call them the Double Luck Twins, and that's where the vineyard name comes from. And so we purchased it in 1996. Here's a nice picture of our sign, and the hillsides there. As you know, San Lucia Highlands is all hillside vineyards up off the valley floor. All have the soil washed out from the hills behind us, so very well drained, gravelly soil. There's a little drone shot we did earlier this year, kind of going up. It's kind of split in half. We have roughly 25 acres in the bottom field there, separated with a little area. Here's our new entrance. If you haven't been down the Double L this year, that's a new entrance in there that we paved and everything. So that's a big improvement for us. But anyway, this bottom field's about 25 acres, and then there's a space where we're going to put the winery eventually, unused area, kind of a drainage area, and then 25 acres at the top of the vineyard. And it's kind of weird. We're going straight up the hill, but you can see how the rows are canted, kind of slanted down the hill there, and that's because we planted north-south direction on the vine rows, and the north-south direction really helps with giving even sunlight during the day. We have the same amount of hours in the morning, sunlight shining on one side of the vine, and in the afternoon has the equal amount of hours on the afternoon side shining, and so that promotes even ripening of the fruit. You can see this little light green band, that's the 1 acre Syrah. That is about 2 weeks behind everything else. It's the last to bud out and later to bloom and the latest to ripen. So it stays that kind of a little bit lighter green, and then we're back in the Chardonnay here, and then we're at the top of the ranch. If you look at this hillside right here, if you looked at it right now, it's all burned. So the fire came right down to the fence line. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But here's our new entrance. You probably have not seen this because it just went in last winter, and so we put this rock wall. We paved it. It's a lot safer entry and exit off of River Road now. Did some landscaping on it, and a February shot where it just snowed that day. You can't see it real well, but they're up in the hills there. That's mostly, the white stuff is mostly fog and clouds, but there was a dusting of snow at the very top. And Mark Catino, one of our sales representatives, was there that day and caught this great shot on a great day. So there's the Double L. This is just recently budded out, so this is about mid-March or so when we start getting green coming back out on the vines, and we get busy this time of year because we have to start spraying for mildew when even when those shoots are just out 3 or 4 inches or something like that. We have to start getting in there and protect it. So. That's kind of the Double L. Some other features of Double L, is organically farmed, and we planted another feature is we planted a lot of different clonal selections of both Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So, we have 8 different Chardonnay clones there, and 13. We used to have 14. We're down to 13. We took one out of Pinot Noir clones and a couple clones of Syrah and a couple clones of Riesling. We have 1 acre of Riesling as well. So anyway, today we're going to talk about one of our Chardonnay clones, and that's the clone 17 that we selected out this year. And that's planted down in the Bonham field. It's 1 acre. Clone 17 is it's a heat-treated Winty clone from the original Winty vineyard in Livermore, and it's kind of made famous by Robert Young Vineyard, which in the mid '80s, the Robert Young Vineyard was kind of one of the key Chardonnay vineyards in California, and it was up in Sonoma County, and so they kind of developed this clone. It was Winty clone. They heat treated it. They kind of cleaned it up so it didn't have as much virus and stuff in it, and it became clone 17. And so we knew about this clone. It's a very nice clone. And so when it came to our Chardonnay clones for planting a Double L in 1997, we picked this clone 17 out for 1 acre. And it does very well. But this is actually the first time we've ever selected it out as one of our single clone, things. And what's nice about having the different clones is that it gives us kind of a spice rack of different flavors and stuff. And this turned out really well this year, so we selected that this year for our clonal selection wines. So it turned out very nice. I think it has a lot of hazelnuts to it. And stuff like that. That's kind of nice, and almost like a little licorice, almost tone to it. Really good acidity, good texture. So it's kind of a unique thing. And Sam and I get together in the springtime. We harvest the clones. We keep the clones separate as much as possible through fermentation and then getting in the barrels. And we kind of go through, and it's kind of like every year's different. Our Double L blends different every year, and what we pick out for clonal selection is just kind of like, hey, this is really good this year. What clone is that? Oh, it's clone 17. Well, let's pick that one out. So that's how the selection comes up every year. It's just what does well, what's kind of interesting that year off the Double L. So it kind of keeps us kind of exciting because it's different every year. So. Yeah. So any questions on that?
Yeah, we had a question come through from Ken on the chat, and he's asking what the yield is from that 1 acre of clone 17.
Okay, so we usually get about 4 tons an acre on average, and this clone is right in there. It's right in the mix of things. So. But we have 4 tons. It sounds like it might be a pretty good quantity. It is a pretty good quantity, but you have to realize we have 1,500 vines per acre there. It's pretty densely planted. So each plant actually support actually has less fruit on it than a normal Chardonnay vineyard in the rest of the valley. But with 1,500 plants, it all adds up, and we get about 4 tons an acre of Chardonnay in a typical year. And the clone 17 is right in there. It's really not that much different than the rest of it.
Nice.
The rest of the clones.
And then, as Sam might have to jump in on this one, but how much malolactic fermentation does this go through?
This particular wine was 100% actually. Across the board, our Chardonnays usually get between 70 and 100% malolactic for our barrel fermented program, that being Highland and then our single vineyards. And this particular lot was 100% malo.
We like malolactic fermentation the most part, but we don't force a wine that doesn't want to go through malolactic. Sometimes if you try and force a wine to finish malolactic, you actually hurt the quality a little bit. So if we get up to 60, 70, 80% malolactic, and we have some lots that don't want to finish, we're comfortable with that because we have enough of the malolactic characteristics, for us, so that's kind of what we do a little bit differently than a lot of wineries. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all excited to try our 2017 Double L Pinot, which got 96 points with Wine Enthusiast, and hear about the update on harvest this year.
Yeah. So here again, this is the Double L Pinot, and so what I talked about with the clones being separate and Sam and I tasting them in the springtime after they've had a chance to develop in the barrels. The Double L Pinot selection is different every year also. And even though we have 13 different clones, typically the Double L Pinot is 3, 4, 5, 6 clones. Is usually somewhere between 4 and 6 clones. We don't try and include everything, but we pick out bits and pieces that we really like that year and try and put them together in a percentage that makes it extra special wine. So it's it's a selection every year. And 17 was a fabulous year overall. It was just a great vintage. Whites and reds did really well. It was really good. And so I think this Pinot kind of reflects, it reflects Sam's talent and also a really good vintage year. So, yeah. This year, 2020 is, I want to be positive and say it was a very interesting year, but it has been a whammified year for us between the pandemic and the fires. Like I said, the fire came almost down to our fence line in the back. And the thing is, when there was nobody around other than friends and neighbors, no fire trucks, no air tankers, nobody, our friends and neighbors had to turn this fire back on itself and not let it come down into the vineyard. So, but it did affect our fruit. And so we are not going to harvest any Pinot Noir for red wine off the top part of our vineyard. And that's about 13 acres of Pinot Noir. The white wine's okay. The Chardonnay is okay. It just doesn't absorb the smoke like Pinot Noir does. So, and we're hopeful the bottom part of the vineyard is just the air quality was different enough down there as the air came in off the ocean and kind of pushed the fire, the smoke uphill. We had a lot less smoke damage in the bottom. And so we've made some lots of Pinot Noir from the bottom field, just kind of experimentally see what happens, what it is. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed. Sam has had a lot of experience with smoke taint. He made some wines out of Carmel Valley in 2016 that had smoke taint, and it was a real learning experience for him that year. And those wines just they didn't age well, and so on and so forth. And he's kind of a super taster for smoke, and so we're kind of using him as the super taster for these lots, and anything that he thinks is bad, we're not going to bottle. But if we find some stuff that's good, this whole thing, we'll bottle a little bit of Pinot. Hopefully, we're keeping our fingers crossed. So we just finished picking that Sunday night, and so most of it's in the fermenter right now. So anyway, but thank God we had a great vintage like 2017, and this Double L, Pinot is I would have to say is probably in the top 3 the best that we've ever made off the Double L Vineyard.
It's awesome. And a quick question before we move to Sam. Robert Cowley wants to know, as a 2019 vintage, like for example the Clone 17 Chardonnay, how long can you keep it, and when will it be optimal to drink it?
Okay, so this wine, as you can taste, has really good acidity. And Sam, I don't know, I doubt you remember what the pH is, but it's probably 3.3 or below. And when that bodes, when we have low pHs like that, that's probably the best indicator of how well white wine ages. And so this wine has a lot of ageability to it. You're talking 20 to 30 years of ageability, if you want to take it that far. I think aging whites becomes a taste preference. It's really up to what you like, whether you want lots of bottle bouquet and interesting other things, or whether you like it a little bit on the younger, fruitier side, or somewhere in the middle. It's really a personal preference on your experience of white wines, of aging white wines. And there's like people like the British love old whites. They love them. I personally like them a little bit younger when there's still some fresh fruit. So everybody has their preference, and it's just up to you whether what you like, and play around with aging some. And if you like it better aged, then you know your palate. So that's kind of my comment on aging.
I like that. Jackie, was there anything else we wanted to get to before we move on to Sam?
Yeah, just a quick question that came through on the chat is, will the fires affect the soil at the Double L?
No, they won't. We've had a little bit of ash, but fall on the vineyard, not much, scattering, and it should have no effect on it. The phenols that cause the smoke taint, there's a little bit of an ash, and if you test something when the ash dropped that night and test it, you might get a little bit of smoke taint and whatever it landed on. But with just sitting out in the air, it goes away real quickly. It oxidizes and goes away. So there's no, if anything, it might add a little bit of nutrients, for next year. So, but there's nothing bad about the ash in the soil.
Well, now let's go over to Sam. Sam, this will be your 5th harvest with Morgan Winery this year. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to Morgan before you taste our rosé?
Certainly. Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, so this is my 5th vintage at Morgan Winery. Before I was at Morgan, I had spent the majority of my winemaking career in Santa Barbara, making both Rhone and Burgundian varietal wines. I was there for the better part of 7-8 years, and I left Santa Barbara to go make wine in the Northern Rhone. That was for the 2015 vintage, kind of to further hone my skills on making cool climate Northern Rhone varietal wines, of which we make Syrah, of course. And upon return, I was looking for a job, kind of up and down the coast of California, for kind of a smaller family-run, family-operated business, but big enough to give me the opportunity to grow as both a winemaker, as as a person, to get really close to the Double L Vineyard and further hone my vineyard skills. And of course, to work with a really great organic vineyard. And Morgan Winery was, presented me with that opportunity. To be honest, I probably had never seen myself in Monterey before this came about. But I'm super lucky and happy that it did. It's kind of serendipitous that there's the opportunity at the right time, so to speak. And it's been really great. It's been a learning experience. It's been a growing experience, and I think that we're making some really great wines, and it's both from my experience in both Santa Barbara and Australia and France and in Oregon, as well as the history and kind of winemaking and viticulture prowess that Dan has Dan started the winery with almost 40 years ago, and he's continued to be a teacher and a mentor, and at this point it's kind of a partnership, and it's really, really nice.
That's awesome. Very cool. And we'd love to hear what you think about our 2019 Rosé of Grenache.
Yeah, yes. So the 2019 Grenache is quite unique because this year it's not 100% Grenache. We use a little bit of a different varietal called Cinsault, but still the kind of the character, the kind of the overwhelming character in this wine is definitely Grenache. It's got bright fruit, whether it be kind of citrus. I actually got a little bit of peach aromas in the wine today, but typically is more kind of citrus forward, with berry fruit as well. So this wine definitely has all those characters, but also a little bit more body, because we used a varietal called Cinsault this year, which comes from a vineyard down in San Lucas. And Cinsault is one of the traditional Southern Rhone varietals, actually, used in both red and rosé wines from the Southern Rhone. And I think that it complements the Grenache really, really nice. So we foot stomp the grapes, before they go into the press. This wine saw, part of it was on the skins after having been foot stomped for 4 hours. The other part was on the skins for about 24 hours. But both Grenache and Cinsault are lightly colored, make lightly colored wines. So even with 24 hours of skin contact, you get this really beautiful kind of salmon pink hued wine. It really just it's perfect.
One of my favorites. So we are going to taste the G17 Syrah too, but just generally, how has it been meeting the challenges of 2020 this year and everything it's presented you?
It certainly has been challenging, but thankfully we've got both the team and the tools to continue making only the best wine possible. And this year, because of the fires, like as Dan referenced, it's required some triage, but we haven't hesitated to do that. So it's been challenging, but with every challenge, there's an opportunity, and I think it's just been another opportunity to grow as both the team, a winery. So while some of it hasn't been fun, it's how it goes. For every peak, there's a trough, and vice versa. And I think we're back on the up and up. So things are looking pretty good.
That's great. And to keep on the rosé note, we do have a question from Rosaline and Scott Tremblay. We'd love to learn more about the recent popularity of rosé, and whether you think this is a passing fancy or whether the American interest in rosé will last.
I think it'll last. Now that most of the rosés produced in the United States and elsewhere, but specifically in the United States, are they're drier, they're lighter, they're made in a style that I find more attractive. But apparently most of the population does as well, and it makes the wines crisper, more drinkable. They're better wines. So I think that it'll stick for sure. And here at Morgan, we've definitely capitalized that on a bit, and it's fun kind of expanding the program a little bit, and playing around with Grenache and a little bit of Cinsault, but still maintaining that kind of crisp, dry, lightly colored style of rosé, which many people kind of describes it as Provençal style rosé. It's certainly that. So this year we might play around with a little bit of Pinot rosé. So just kind of another tool in the toolbox, and I think it'll be great.
Okay.
10 years ago, most domestic rosés were sweet, and so with the advent of going dry, it's reached out and hit a good positive nerve with most people now. And it used to be you could see rosé on the East Coast and rosé on the West Coast. Now it's filled in. You see rosé everywhere, and so it's for a lot of the summertime when it's really hot in parts of the whole United States, it's a great wine, for those warm times. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be popular from here on out.
Yeah, and I think the American wine drinker has become a little bit more educated, and that's another reason why this style of rosé has become much more popular, and it's a more sustainable style, for lack of a better term.
Okay, well, to move on to another fan favorite, we have our G17 Syrah. Now, this one got 94 points with Wine Enthusiast, and it is always a popular one for us. So, Sam, will you tell us a little bit about the blend and the Rome program that goes on at Morgan to make this kind of blend happen?
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of kind of background on G17, G17 is named after the highway that connects many of our vineyards, most of which for this wine are in the SLH. And so at Morgan, our Rhone program is kind of split between Grenache and Syrah, but for this wine it's Syrah heavy. So it's got that cool climate Syrah character, being that the Syrah is all grown in the Santa Lucia Highlands, most of which comes from Double L Vineyard and then Paraiso, two really great vineyards that have these kind of Arroyo Seco and Truar loam soils that are they're derived from granite, which Syrah does very well in. But the way that we make the wines are very similar to the way that we make Pinots. We ferment every lot in very small open top fermenters, most often using native yeast. And the wines are on the skins for 7 to 10 days to get good color, good richness, but to not get too much bitterness, to kind of maintain that balance and kind of softness. So cool climate Syrah many times can kind of be the Pinot Noir of Syrah. And this is definitely kind of a lighter, fresher style of Syrah. This is definitely not your Barossa Valley, Shiraz. So not that there's anything wrong with that, but this is definitely the other end of the spectrum. So and we like to complement the Syrah with a little bit of Grenache and Tempranillo. The Grenache gives it a little bit more red fruit, sometimes a little bit more acid, and then the Tempranillo we use in lieu of Mourvèdre, because there's really just not that much Mourvèdre in Monterey County, but it still gives it that kind of red fruit, but spice and kind of leather. It complements those other varietals super well.
We've actually found some Mourvèdre this year. And so we're going to make a Mourvèdre from a friend's vineyard up in the Chalon area. And so that's pretty exciting because it will hopefully free up some Tempranillo for the straight Tempranillo, 100% Tempranillo wine. And we'll finally have a little bit more traditional blender than Tempranillo.
And we age the wine for about 10 months. A little bit of new oak, but not too much. About 20% complements the fruit, but doesn't get in the way. And that's kind of what we're all about in making all of our wines, is kind of just bolstering, supporting the fruit, but not covering it up, because we've got these really beautiful vineyards that are farmed really well. They produce great fruit. So why cover that up with oak? We just want to kind of support that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and Rosaline and Scott say we love the G17, and it's an accessible price point yet complex, which is a fantastic combination, and I couldn't agree more. How many cases do we produce of the G17 Syrah a year?
Generally it's between 1,500 and 2,000 cases, depending on our yields at the vineyards. Like I said, a lot of this wine is from Double L and then Paraiso. So we're kind of at the whim of nature to a certain degree, but also we have the option to make a little bit more or a little bit less sometimes, depending on demand. But it's usually around there. And this is, as well as being a great wine club wine, this is a great restaurant wine as well, because it is so balanced and the price point is so good. So and I totally agree with that. It's complex and delicious, and the price point is incredible. So I love that about this wine as well.
Sam, I'm going to jump in real quick, because as we're talking about the Rhones, we had a question on the chat that asked if we would consider Grenache down the road as a red wine.
Well, yes, we have, and we do, and we will continue to do so. We used to make a single varietal Grenache, and that's certainly in the cards. But we have found it to be really good as a blender, and I'm sure there will be another time when we make a single varietal Grenache. We just haven't been focusing on that in the last few years.
We have Margie, who's drinking a 2008 Lee Family Farm and a 2008 Rio Tinto. Oh, Lee Family Farm, probably the Tempranillo. Sounds like Margie has a good selection on hand. Sam, which are the hardest wines for you to make?
I would say probably Double L Pinot Noir. And that's not because the fruit is not incredible, because it is. It's because we have so many lots. So because Double L is our estate vineyard. We've got Dan, what is it, 27, 28 acres of Pinot out there?
Yeah, about 28 acres.
Okay, so we've got 28 acres of Pinot Noir, and so we might have 10, 15 lots of Double L Pinot Noir in a given vintage, and it's really the blending process that's the most challenging. So, we make all of these, really interesting single clone wines during harvest. They're all fermented in 4 to 5 ton lots. And then when we, once we go back to the drawing board for the blending process, it's sometimes difficult finding the perfect kind of balance between fruit and earth, acid and tannin, whether it's red fruit or blue fruit. There's in the Double L Pinot blend, there's always quite a bit of the Dijon clones, but the Pommard clone, LT clone, those typically work well as supporting actors. And depending on the vintage, we might go through 4 rounds of blending and tasting, and sometimes we might go through 10. But it's all, it's all for a really good purpose. And, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, we will have forgotten about, that long and arduous process, and we will have a super delicious, really ageable wine. So while it's challenging, it also, is super rewarding.
Yeah, let me jump in here. We have a great assistant winemaker, Patrick Jackson. And so Sam and I and Patrick get together and taste these blends. And so, we were tasting along, and when Sam and I agree, we're going in the right direction, because Patrick sometimes, he can be the odd guy out. I mean, he'll like a blend that Sam and I don't like, and we'll say, well, Patrick, how come you like this? He goes, well, it smelled like a flower I remember when I was a kid or something, And it's like, okay, Patrick, that's great, but okay. So it's interesting, but when we come, find a lot that we all agree on, that's we're going in the right direction.
And it is good because we never have a tie.
Yes,
there's
right.
always a winner.
Yeah.
We have Oh,
okay.
we do have another question from Sandra regarding natural yeast. I think that natural yeast is an interesting part of Morgan wines. She asked, how do you control off flavors from natural yeast?
We don't get a lot of off flavor production in our natural yeast. We have a very strong kind of house yeast that is kind of established a population over the years, and it's both a fast fermenter and generally a clean fermenter. We do use a little bit of sulfur at the juice stage, and that helps to kill some of the microbes that might kind of compete with that yeast, that also might produce off flavors or off aromas. So really just a little bit of sulfur kind of can help clean it up and kind of pave the way for a really nice wine.
Well, and Sammy, we babysit those too. I mean, when if we see something not going right, we will intervene, and in that lot we might throw in some known yeast that does a very good job, and just say, hey, this ain't working, so let's not push it, and intervene like and with a strong yeast that will take it cleanly through fermentation. So we just have to sit on them, babysit them a little bit more.
Yeah. Some they won't move for several days, and then all of a sudden they've completed half of fermentation. So it's definitely a little bit of a wild card, much more than using cultured yeast. But I think that's also part of the fun and part of the allure about it. And like Dan said, you have to babysit it, but if you do so, you generally get a really great product. So and recently we've been using what's called a pied de cuve, which is basically a fermentation that we start out at the vineyard at Double L. So when I'm sampling grapes before harvest, I'll fill up a bucket, really full, and then I'll crush up the grapes and just leave it out at the vineyard to start fermenting, and I'll use that as my inoculant instead of kind of building a yeast culture at the winery from dry activated yeast. I'll get that yeast culture going out at the vineyard, and then pitch that into one of my fermenters at the winery, and that both it gets the fermentation going more quickly, and that is really the best way to kind of get the real native yeast from the vineyard into the wines, and know that that's what's fermenting our wines.
Yeah. Sandra says, thank you. Kudos. That's why every vintage is uniquely wonderful.
Thank you guys so much for joining us, but we've got lots more questions. So if you want to stay on, we'll ask them, and hopefully Sam and Dan will give us some more of their time, and we'll just kind of get through them. So ask away, Melissa. You want to?
Okay. And to talk a little bit about the crest that's on our label.
Yeah. Well, I think that when Don and I, started the winery, started thinking about labels and what the look was, we wanted the look to be, and the feel of the label and stuff. We both liked the kind of traditional Burgundian look, and so that's kind of what we emulated in our label. And we used to spend a lot of time. Well, we went to our family crest first, and it's a little bit boring. So we kind of said, well, we can do better. So we spent a lot of time in the library in the evenings looking at heraldry books and eventually picking and choosing things that we like to build our own logo, our own shield, let's say, our family logo. Which is in the family. It has some family elements in it. The griffins are from the family logo, and that's about the only thing that's from the family logo in there. But we picked out something we liked, and we kind of felt like it was kind of important to keep the look consistent because people get used to it. They see it, and they recognize it right away. I'll cite another winery that I know of that every 2 to 3 years changed their label, and that's what we didn't want is having a look that changed all the time, because I think it was very confusing for the consumer. And so we had a very good designer, Chuck House, design the label in the beginning. And we had in 2002, we had him do a refresh on the label and brought it we got a little disorganized on it, and he brought it back together and kind of kept it cohesive and across the product lines and stuff. And I think we just feel it's pretty important to keep that look to, the wine is confusing enough. If you change the label all the time, it just makes it even more confusing. So that's kind of the perspective that we come from.
So Syrah versus Pinot Noir, is there a preferred breathing time after opening the wines before drinking them?
Sam, you want to take that?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that, it's a little bit hard, not speaking of, specific wines and specific vintages, but I think that Syrah definitely tends to need a little bit more time to breathe. Sometimes Syrah can have a little bit of a reductive aroma. Ours typically don't. But in general, it does do well with a little bit of air. It helps to soften the tannins as well. Maybe, open up the bottle an hour before you're going to drink it. I think that that's kind of a good rule for a lot of wines, to be honest. Pull the cork, put it in the fridge. And we're talking about red wines, of course. Pull the cork, put the cork back in, put it in the fridge, cool it down a little bit, because, if you've been storing your wine at room temperature, it's going to taste better. If it's a little bit cooler than that, typically, 60, 65 degrees is a really nice serving temperature for red wine. And over that hour, it will open up, and, you get a little bit more of that bottle bouquet. But, Pinot, I think it's really interesting to kind of watch the evolution. I like to taste it, smell it and taste it, immediately upon opening, but also give it time. So, and since most of our wines can age very well, I would have a glass, tonight, and maybe, 2 glasses tonight with dinner, and then, have a glass tomorrow and see the evolution over the course of the day. Because there will be some change. The tannins will soften, the acidity might integrate a little bit, but again, that serving temperature is also really crucial to kind of preserving some of those kind of more subtle aromatics. So 60 degrees for Pinot Noir, I think, is really important. So Dan, what do you think about that?
Well, there's a lot of people that open a bottle, and this is their aeration device right here. They smell it early on, and they aerate it. Smell some more. I'm kind of in that camp. So there's a couple thoughts to that. So yeah.
Caroline says she's drinking a 2016 Double L Syrah that she opened at noon, and it was still tight when we started at 4:30. And then she aerated it the second glass, and it's getting there. So she might be doing the same technique as you.
Yeah. Yeah. It works.
Yep.
Margie wants to know, are you moving forward with a tasting room on River Road?
Yes, we are at a glacial rate.
One day. This is a good one for you too, Dan. What's your thought process behind outsourcing varietals?
You know, the San Lucia Highlands grows cool climate grapes very well, but it can't grow warm climate grapes very well at all. You know, that's why we can't grow Zinfandel or Cabernet or Merlot, things like that. So, I mean, if we have a desire to make those kind of things, we do outsource them and if we get a good grower, they're very good. I mean, all our Sauvignon Blanc is from sources. A lot of our Rhones, a lot of the Crows is from sources. And so, yeah, so we mix and match both of them. But when it comes to Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, we're really pretty SLH focus our vineyard and neighboring vineyards on those two varietals because that, you know, the SLH just excels in those grapes. But when it comes to other things like that, we're comfortable outsourcing. So
there's another question here on the same topic. We'll see if you know these vineyards. The question is, any chance Morgan will make a Pinot with grapes from Kiefer or Parsons Vineyard?
Well, I think those are up in Sonoma County, North Coast somewhere. And, you know, I never say no, but we are really focused on San Lucia Highlands. So it would be a kind of a stretch to go up and promote Sonoma fruit when we're here in Monterey and in San Lucia Highlands. So it's more of a marketing focus, I think, more than anything.
Robert Kelly has another question. What do you see your optimum production level over the next 5 years?
Well, I think we make wine depending on what we sell, what our sales team sells. So if the sales teams, they sell a lot of fruit, a lot of boxes, a lot of cases in a certain year, we can make more. We have very good sources of fruit besides Double L that we can, you know, increase quantities. And conversely, like this year with the pandemic going on, we've reduced production because we don't want to overproduce and have a bunch of stuff sitting in warehouses for way too long. So we're flexible that way, and we're fortunate in that we have a good quality winemaking team and we have the materials. It's just, you don't want to change your recipe by making more or less. We have the capabilities to ramp up quantities and keep everything quality intact at the same time. And that's the most important thing.
Marla Wright asks, how have you pivoted in your marketing due to the pandemic, since there's considerably less traffic to your tasting room? I guess I can kind of touch on that a little bit. I think what we're trying to do is just touch base with our customers and most importantly, our club members, and let them know we're here for them. You know, we've tried to come up with some fun emails each week just to stay in touch with people. But, you know, largely, as much as we've been seeing people less, we've been communicating with people more. It's really nice to have club member support and customer support during this time.
Jackie can probably answer that because she's had a handle on both wholesale and tasting room stuff. So Jackie, why don't you comment?
Oh boy, I got to spotlight myself. I mean, one of the biggest things that we've done is we've had to do a lot of virtual stuff like we're doing now, and we've really had to do a better job at reaching our customers through video and through chat. So I've been doing a lot of our YouTube videos, which has been a pretty fun learning experience. All right, Melissa, I'm going to get the spotlight off of me and back onto you.
Okay, well, I will say, yes, Jackie's been putting together some amazing YouTube videos. So if you haven't seen them yet, please do go to our YouTube channel and you can find this whole meeting and then a bunch of fun other videos. So thank you so much for that, Jackie.
Yeah. All right. While you're still spotlighted, there is another chat question. How do you decide what is distributed retail versus what we distribute through Wine Club?
Oh, so, well, I think, you know, in a lot of ways, Morgan is distributed all over the country. Can you find it in every store? Maybe not. The ones that I like to put in Wine Club are the most exclusive. So, you know, you've probably seen some club exclusive wines that we only make 100 or so cases of. The stuff I like to designate for club is limited in production. It's clonal, it's unique. But for Judy, who lives in Massachusetts, I would recommend you email me. I can work with Jackie and we can find out what store might be near you that you can find Morgan in. And that goes for all of our club members. If you need to buy it in the store, we can tell you where it is at your nearest location.
I think also it's quantity. You know, if we make an item that's 5,000 to 10,000 cases in production, then that's going to be more widely distributed than a 50 case item or a 100 case item. So that the quantity of the wine that we make is really dictates where it's sold.
Dan, any chance of making a Cabernet Franc?
Slight, you know, I never say never, but I don't even know of a correct Cabernet Franc vineyard in Monterey, to tell you the truth. There's just some things that's very, very sparsely planted down here. So I can't even name one vineyard that's Cabernet Franc in Monterey County right now. So that's why I say it's pretty slim.
I like this one for you, Dan. How often do you go into the library when selecting a bottle for your own enjoyment?
The public library? I wish. Yeah, no, you know, not real, maybe once a month or something like that. I'm usually just trying to keep caught up with new releases and how they're tasting, and then tasting other competitors' wines. I do that more to day-to-day focus, and then I do go, you know, in the cellar once or twice a month and pick something out, you know, that's a little bit older, but not real often, you know. So
About how many cases of wine do we produce?
You know, we're right around 30,000 cases, plus or minus a little bit, you know. So
nice.
In a nutshell, on an annual basis. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Robert's asking, what are your thoughts on unoaked Chardonnay? Like our Metallico.
Yeah, we love it. We love it.
Yeah.
We like, you know, we like the different styles. Some people have, you know, it's a preference thing too. And yeah, but we have, you know, there's certain situations where the unoak is the better choice with a food match and stuff. And there's other times when the traditional might be a better choice, you know. So and there's just different people like certain ones and more than others, and that's perfectly fine. But we love our unoak Chardonnay. It's really, you know, really kind of one of our steady eddies.
All right, maybe we'll send this one. This is one of the last ones. We'll send this over to Sam. What are your comments on the Double L Pomard 5 clone 2017?
Yeah, Pomard Pomard clone in general is one of the best clones at Double L. You know, it produces slightly bigger clusters, bigger berries, and it's typically kind of a structure, you know, a structural based wine. And I think that the 2017 Pomard Pinot, it definitely kind of, it shows that. It's got, you know, really dark color, a lot of structure. You know, we had a lot of structure in 2017, you know, across the board. And I think it definitely shows that. So, you know, a super ageable wine, you know, we were talking about ageability of some of our wines. I think that the 2017 Pomard 5 is definitely, you know, kind of up there in the runnings. So tasting great right now. I had a bottle a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we've made it through the chat, Melissa. It's been an active chat, so we'll make sure if we accidentally skipped anyone's questions, we'll reach out to you guys with some answers on those. But it looks like we've done it all.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan and Sam, for being with us here. Thank you for all the club members that joined. It was really great visiting with you for a little while. We'll look forward to, you know, hosting you soon. And I hope you all continue to enjoy great Morgan wine. And we truly appreciate your support.
Thanks, everyone. My glass is empty.
Thank you, everybody.
Our glasses are empty.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers.